For everyone that's joining us now, thank you for your patience. We were just working through some technical issues. We will go ahead and get started here. This is the 60 by 30 EGRAMS portal training for student success grant opportunities. Joseph will be presenting on EGRAMS, and so I will let him go ahead and present. If you have questions, feel free to type those in the chat. We won't have time for Q&A today, but we will make sure that your questions will be addressed at the 60 by 30 grants website. So Joseph, go right ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this training on the grants, on the EGRAMS. I'm going to toggle between PowerPoint and the actual application and also some recording. So uh, just to give you an overview, EGRAMS is basically a web-based application, fairly easy to use. You don't need any additional software to run EGRAMS. Supports all the industry standard browsers. So if you're using Microsoft Edge, Firefox, Chrome, or Safari, it should work fine with any of those browsers. Okay, so the most important thing is how you start your application is this is the URL that you would use. So, https egrams-mi.com/leo, because we've got multiple sites. There's MDHHS, MIDC. So many times I find that people go to a egrams site, but it's not the Leo site. So just make sure that whenever you are trying to apply or you want to do anything with Leo, make sure that this is the correct URL that you're using. Okay, so with that said, we are going to get into this training, and there are a few things that you need to do. That means before you can start using the application. So I'm going to go ahead and close this and start with, so I have done some recordings, so I'll just go over those recordings. So you type in your URL, that will bring up the site. Now, very familiar. So there are several self-serve options. So before you can, just 1 second, I'm not very sure that this is not stopping. Okay, just bear with me. Okay. So here, once you invoke the EGRAMS website, there are several self-serve options here. There's register your agency, create your user profile, and see what are the current grants that are available. So what we're going to look at in this demonstration is how you can look for what are the current grants that are available. So if you click on see current grants, it's going to show you what are the grants that are available. And based on your interest, you can click on the additional info icon, and that's going to get you some additional information about this particular grant program. So if you look at the screen, there are 4 different tabs. There's general, additional, and user documents, as well as technical assistance. So in the general tab, if you look at this here, there is a brief synopsis of what the program is all about. So you can scroll down, make sure that you go through the synopsis. Then you've got the important timelines. When was this grant published? What is the submission due date as well as the time? And then what is the minimum requested? What is the maximum requested? And who are the primary contacts on this program? Then if you click on the additional info tab, it gives you some additional information. It tells you that this grant is a competitive grant. Uh, it also tells you it's federally funded. And most importantly, it tells you who are the eligible agencies. So only organizations that are nonprofits, public community colleges, or tribal colleges, those are the agencies that can apply. And then if you go to user documents, many times the program administrators may want to share documentation with you. So you can go through what documentation is available. So here, if you click on the link here, it'll bring up the grant guidance document. If you click on the grant application, it brings up the manual application form. So you can go through all those guidelines and the documents that are available before you decide to apply for a grant. So if you want to look at the information on the other program, that's the direct barrier removal, just click on the info icon there. And again, you'll see the same information as applicable to that program. And if you click on additional info, you'll notice that this is an allocation program, which means only applicants who have received an allocation can apply for this particular program. And then again, the user documents. This will show you the application for the barrier removal program. So once you have gone through the grant opportunities, if you decide to apply, then you can go ahead and start with the application process. Now, before you start applying for a grant, the first thing is that your organization should have a agency profile. So to create an agency profile, now if multiple people are using this or you're applying for more than one grant, you don't have to register your agency multiple times. You're going to register your agency only once. So to register your agency, you're going to click on register your agency. And if you're not sure whether your agency has been created or not, you know, you can click on verify your agency registration. Click on this link. And in the description, you can just use some part of your name. So I just put com college. And notice that I'm using a wildcard. Percentage is a wildcard. So you can prefix or suffix it with a percentage and just put part of the name and see if your college or nonprofit is existing. So if it's already existing, you don't have to create it again. Now, when I look at these uh, institutes or agencies that have come up here based on my search criteria, I don't see my agency. So I'm going to go ahead, click on close here, and I will create my agency profile. So it's fairly simple, just enter the required information. Anything that you see, anything that you see in asterisks is mandatory. If you see that there is no asterisk before a label, that means that field is mandatory and you can leave that blank. And then DUNS number is not mandatory, but the unique identifier is required for federal grants. And then the vendor reference is your Sigma vendor ID. So if you have that, you can enter it, otherwise you can leave it blank And if you get awarded, you'll have to make sure that you update your vendor reference number. The next thing is agency type. Now, this determines your eligibility. So make sure that you select the correct agency type. I'm going to select public community college. Also notice that this screen has got three different tabs. So this is the general tab, which is the agency information. Then click on the contacts tab 20 to enter any contacts information. And then put in the email and the phone number. And then click on the others and select whatever counties you are serving. So if it's more than one county, you can select more than one county. If it's just one, just select one. Mark it as a primary, whichever is your primary county. So if you're working with multiple counties, uh, you would select multiple counties and mark one of them as a primary. So the next thing, once your agency is created, the next step is to create your user profile. So to create your user profile, one second. So to create your user profile, you will click on create user profile. And the first thing it tells you is your agency must be registered before you can create your user profile. So this is an informational message. So acknowledge that message and start creating your user profile. So you have to give a username and a password and all the basic information that is required. So avoid when you create your user profile, just try to do it as your first name initial, and then your last name. Avoid using any ampersands or um, those type of special characters in your username. And also make sure that it does not exceed 15 characters. I mean, it will give you an error if you try to do more than 15 characters, but that's the limitation. And then your password, select your title, and then put in your name. The system automatically displays your a display name. So this is the name that will greet you when you log into the system. Then select your role. Select your role as a grantee. Once you have done that, then select what organization you belong to. So to select from the lookup, just click on the checkbox on the left hand side and it will return all the information to the main screen. So by default, it will put that same address of your organization against your agency profile. If you need to change it, you can go ahead and change it. You can put in your email and then your phone number. And then this screen has two tabs. So click on the additional info and select what is your job title. And then what county you belong to. And the next thing is you're going to select a security question and give it a response. Now there are two questions here. One is mandatory, so you can do both or you can but one is required. And once you do this, click on OK. Now this will create your user profile, but your user profile is created as with an inactive status. So normally once you create your user profile during the day, we activate them thrice a day. First thing in the morning at 8:30, then around lunchtime, and then in the evening. So if you create your user profile at about 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, it may not get activated till about 5:30. So only once your user account has been activated, that's when you can actually start logging into the system. And once your user profile is activated, you're going to receive an email notifying you that your user profile has been activated. So now I created my user profile. So Jack Daniels has created his user profile. So if he tries to log in, it's going to give him an error saying that the user profile is inactive. So he cannot log into the system as yet. So once the user profile has been activated, he would receive an email something like this, that your user profile has been activated, and then you can now log into the system. Okay. So now that the user profile has been activated, let's start with the application process. So the first thing is, now I'm going to log in as Jack Daniels, and you see that once you log in based on your user role, you're going to see only options that are applicable for your specific role. So if I click on administration, there is agency information. So after I create my agency profile, if there is anything that I need to change, I can always go to the agency profile option, agency info option, and then change any information there. So if I want to change, I would just select edit and just do a find and change any of the information and click OK. And that would change the information in your agency profile. Now, before we can start entering information in our application, we have to start an application. So we would select project director, start a new application. But before that, also any emails that get sent out by the system, they would go to your Outlook or whatever email system you have. But you can also view them in EGRAMS. So if you go to communication, sorry, and go to email log, and just do a find, you'll see all the emails that you have received from EGRAMS. So this is the user activation email that Jack Daniels got. So let's go back and start our application. So based on my eligibility, the system will only show me programs that my organization is eligible for. So right now there are two programs. There's the Quick Start and there's the barrier removal. But since barrier removal is a allocation program and this agency does not have an allocation, they cannot apply for that program. So I'm going to select this, and by default it's going to show me the program name as my project title. So I can go ahead and change the project title to whatever I want. I just gave it Quick Start Test Application, and I'll click on OK. So once I've started my application, I can go ahead and start entering information. Now, when we start our application, sometimes multiple people may work on the same application. So before they can, although they may have a valid user profile, whoever creates the application, he or she becomes the owner of that application. And only that person is going to have access to that specific application. So if you want more than one person to work on your application, you'll have to assign users to that specific application. So now I go here, 1 second. So I'll go to project director, assign agency users, and I'll just click a find. When I click on find, it's going to show me all the users that are there from my organization. So I can assign them specific permissions. Now, on this application, in addition to a project director or a primary contact, we also need an authorized official, somebody to be designated as an authorized official, because only that person has the ability to mark the certification on this application. So I'm going to select Jimmy Dean as the authorized official. Now, also, if you want to restrict access to specific sections on the application, we can mark the applicability checkbox, because by default, when you assign somebody to an application, that person has full access to the application. So if we want to restrict access, then we mark the applicability checkbox, select category, and then we can assign which sections can be a read, which can be a write. So if they are read, that person, although they have access to the application, they cannot edit anything in those sections. So what we have done here is we've given this person write permission to the applicant section, read permission to the proposal and budget section, no access to the attachment section, and write permission to the certification section. So I'll click on OK and then save this information. Okay. So now that now assigning of users doesn't have to be done in the same sequence as I showed you. You can assign them at any point in time once you have started the application. So now that we have done that, let's go through the application entry. So for the application entry, we are going to select grant application, enter grant application. So when I come here, it's going to show me the application that I just created. So that's my application queue. So I'll click on the application link. And the first thing it's going to tell me, it's going to give me a message saying that the submission deadline is 22nd of March at 11:59. I acknowledge that message. And by default, it shows me my organization information. It shows me the name, the address, and what type of organization this is. So now, before we actually look into the application entry, let's look at these tabs. So basically, uh, in your paper application, you're going to have different sections. So in an online application, these sections are denoted as tabs. And then you have got these save buttons. You've got save. What does save do? Save is going to save the information and keep you on the same page. Save and next is going to save your information and move you to the next page. If you click on validate, validate is going to validate that specific section. And if there are any errors, those errors will be highlighted. This errors icon is going to be enabled. And done validates the entire application. So the difference between validate and done is validate is going to only validate a specific section, whereas done is going to validate the entire application. Okay, and view PDF is going to show you a PDF of the specific section. Okay, so those are these buttons, the function of these different buttons. And then if we look at these tabs, if we have entered any information and we have not saved it and we are trying to move to a different page, the system is going to give you an error saying that you have not saved the information. Do you want to continue? So if you click on yes, it's not going to save the information. If you click on no, it will bring you back to the page so that you can then save the information. Now, clicking on these tabs, now when you're entering your application, you don't have to enter the application in any sequence. You can enter any information in any order. So to navigate, if you click on the tab, it's going to take you to the first page of that tab or that particular section. Also, within a tab or a section, you're going to have many pages. So if you want to go to a specific page within that section, you can also click on, whichever page you want to go, and it's going to take you to that specific page. Now this is the budget section. Then this is the attachments, and then there's the index. So index is like a table of content of the entire application. And you can also click on this node here in the sorry, in the index page, and that also will take you to that specific page. And then if you want to navigate sequentially, you can also use the next and previous to go through the various pages that are there. So let's go to the applicant section. So by default, it puts your project title here. If you need to change, you can change it. It shows you the start and dates of this program, and then what are the funds you're requesting. Now, if you notice in the regulations, we had that the minimum was 50,000 and the maximum was 75,000. So I'm going to enter 80,000. So it's going to give me an error saying that, hey, the maximum allowed is only 75,000. Similarly, if I put 40,000, it's going to say the minimum is 50,000. So it's going to validate that information and give you an error if you're putting something outside those ranges. I'm going to click on save, and then we've got this section to enter a brief description of the project. So you can type in any of this information directly here, or you can, if you have a Word document, you can just do a copy and paste. So I'm just going to paste some information here. Then we come to the contacts. So here there are two contacts that are required. So one is a project director and one is the authorized official. So here, if they have a username, you can select you can invoke the lookup, EGRAMS lookup, and select the name. And by default, it's going to display the name and the address and all the information. Now, if they don't have a EGRAMS login, you can just type in their name as well. So if you had more contacts than what are going to be accessing egrams, but you wanted to add them to your application, you could just type in their names without having a user profile. So when I click on Save Next, it's asking me whether I want to create a new, I want to add a new contact. So if I say yes, it's going to generate another blank page. If I say no, it's going to move on to the next section. So I'm going to say yes. And now if I say no, now it's moved to the proposal. Now, when you go to these sections, you'll see that there's a show and hide instruction. So show and hide is basically like a toggle. So if you click on show instructions, it's going to tell you what is expected in this particular section. So here you just have plan for using quick start funds, but what is expected in your response? You can go through that by clicking on the show hide instructions. So they're expecting a whole lot in that response. So again, if you have content, you can just copy and paste it, or you can just type the information. Now, also many times there may be a restriction on the number of characters that are allowed. Uh, so here it's also telling you how many characters this content has. So it's telling you that there are 1687 characters. So if it exceeds the character limit, it's going to give you an error. So now all these sections are very similar, so we are not going to show you how each of these pages are entered. But when you exceed any character limit, now here the maximum character limit is 1500. So the character limit characters here for this text is 2635. So we'll have to shorten it. We'll go ahead and shorten that. So there are several sections. I didn't go through all of them. So this is the last section in the proposal section. I'm just going to mark. And then I'll go through the budget. Now, again, in the budget, each of these expense categories or budget categories, uh, maybe there are specific expenses that you can book against that. So if you want to see any help, so what can be included as contractual services or what can be in supplies. So it gives you some additional information. So you can click on the information icon here. And then you can just type in whatever is your budget. And then to upload any attachments, what you would see is you, you would see that upload icon. So this icon denotes that it's an attachment. So to upload an attachment, just click on the up arrow icon, and then that will open up a window. Then so before that, click on the browse and select your file, and then click on OK on this window. And then just mark these responses. So notice that this upload icon was disabled. When we clicked on yes, that's the time it got enabled. So if there are any dependencies, those icons get enabled and disabled based on whatever dependencies have been set. So you need to upload this attachment only if you're having partners. If you don't have partners, if you mark this as no, then you don't have to upload any attachment. And then we come to the certification page. So now this particular page is restricted to an authorized official, so that uh, somebody who's authorized to sign a contract, only that person can mark this certification. So if Jack Daniels were to try and mark it, it would say that you're not authorized to honor this certification or these assurances. So before I pass this application to Jack Daniels, I'm going to just validate the application. So I'll just click on done. So by clicking on done, it's going to validate the application and tell me if there are any errors. So there are a whole lot of errors here. So if we click on the error box, it will take me to that page where there are errors. So I can go ahead and it says that, these cannot be blank. So we'll go ahead and mark those. So now it's also giving me an error for the indirect cost. So indirect costs are at 10%. So you cannot have indirect costs more than 10%. And also it's saying that the project cost is 50,000, but our budget is 51,000. So let's go ahead and fix that. And I think there is some error related to the attachment. So it says that you've not uploaded this attachment. So I'll just change the response to no. So either I could upload the attachment or change the response to no, because then the attachment is not required. And the attachment, when it is saved, it will show up as a paperclip. This one is just taking a little time to open up. So I just uploaded some attachment here, but you would upload your W9. So now let me click on done to make sure that there are no errors. So now the only errors are related to the certification. So now that Jack Daniels is done filling the application, so now Jimmy Dean will have to come and complete the certification. So I'm going to log in now. So I'm going to log in as Jimmy Dean. Go to grant application, enter grant application. So now, if you recollect, when we set up permissions for Jimmy Dean, we said that he had write permission for this section, for the applicant section, read for this. So notice that the save buttons have been disabled. Budget also was only read. Attachment, there was no access. So if he goes here, you do not have access to this. Now let's go to certification section, mark the certification, click on save. Now let's run the validator to make sure there are no errors. So everything is validated. Now Jimmy Dean is the authorized official. So as the authorized official, he's completed the certification. So I'm going to log out. Now I'll log back in as Jack Daniels. I'll go ahead and submit the application. So to submit the application, we would go to grant application, print submit. Click on this. So now here you see that it's the same application, but this is a read-only view. And the view shows you, it's more like a tree view. So if I just click on this left side of the tree, it's going to bring up the content. And I could use the previous next as well. And then the budget, we had some notes. If I want to see the notes, this icon will show up. And then if I need to print up my application, I can use either of these PDF icons. This one is going to merge the attachment into one PDF, whereas this one will show it as a link. If I click on the PDF here, okay, so this is how the PDF looks of the application. So now that everything looks good, I'll click on the submit button. And this is just giving me a warning saying that, this is going to move to the next stage. I'll say yes. Now, once the application has moved to the next stage, once you have submitted it, you cannot edit it any longer. You can always view it, by going to the print and submit option. You can always access it. You can generate a PDF. But if you go to the enter grant application option, it will tell you you do not have access at this stage. So make sure that after submitting, if you want to review your application, you always select the print and submit option. Now, once it goes into the, what do you call, once you have submitted your application, it's going to go through several internal processes, reviews and approvals before you hear back. So if you want to know what is the status of your application, instead of having to call somebody at the office of 60 by 30, you can just go to project director, application status, and just check the status of your application. So if you look at this application status screen, it says application submitted at 1:46 p.m. That means we just submitted it. Also, it would be sending out an email which you will get in your Outlook. If I just do a find, it will show me the submission here. So this is the submission email or submit confirmation email that is sent out by the system. So this is pretty much what I had for today's training. So it just covers all the tasks that you need to perform before you can submit your application. So the first step is create your agency profile. The second one is create your user profile. Once it's activated, then you would start your application. If there's more than one person who's going to work on the application, you're going to assign those users. Then you're going to go through the entire application, validate it for errors. Then the authorized official is going to endorse or certify the application, and then it's going to be submitted. And all this has to happen before the 22nd of March. So any questions?
Hi, Joseph. Thank you. So there a couple of quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
An individual wants to know if they have their agency registered through DHHS, will they also need to register through LEO?
Yes, because DHS is a separate site, Leo is a separate site. So if you're in DHHS, then you still have to create your agency profile as well as user profile in the Leo site.
Great. Another question that we got is, would the primary contact be able to see what other users registered and then what they submitted? And maybe if you could walk through where the primary contact might be able to see that information.
Just one second. What was your question once again?
Whether or not primary contact will be able to see what other users are registered, and then can they also see what they submitted?
Only one person could submit an application. So if there are 5 people from one organization, the system won't allow the second, if one application has already been created, the system will not allow another user to start a new application because it will say only one application is allowed for the organization. Now, if a user wants to see who else is there in the organization, they can just go to project director, assign agency users, and then select the grant program which they have started and just do a find. So if they do a find, they will see all the users from their agency. And they'll if the perm stat is inactive, that means those people don't have access to the application. Did that answer somebody's question? Whoever asked that question, did that answer your question?
I'm hoping that does, but again, we will make sure questions are addressed on our website as well. Jill Anderson, I see that you have your hand raised, so I am going to allow you to unmute yourself so you can ask your question.
Thank you. My question is, I have a bunch of people on my committee who I'll be working with, and I wanted to maybe print out a PDF of all of the application so that I can delegate parts to them. Is that possible, or is the application only viewable in this particular way?
So if you go to current grants here, okay. So if we see, click on this icon here. What's happening? You know, in the documents that I showed you, why is this pop-up not opening? One second, let me. So if I go to user documents, so these were the two documents that I showed you, but this is the EGRAMS application blank form. So this is a PDF of the application. So if you just want to see what is the information required, this is the information that's required. So this is telling you the help, and this is, you know, plan for using the quick start funds, ensure engagement. So all those questions that you saw in the online application, you can see them in PDF format as a just as a blank form.
Great,
So
that's
did that?
helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
There's also, for each grant application, as we are releasing them, we will be also including the Word document versions of the grant application on the website as well. And
Yeah,
then,
so the Word is already available, right? So if you click on this, go to user documents. This is the Word document of the application. So this is, I don't know if this was the updated one or, so this is quick starts to, this is the Word version of the document. Okay, then there is another question from, I think, Candace Joan. For higher ed institutions, should each respective unit college create their own agency profile in addition to the parent agency? So if only one agency is applying, I think that's the only agency that needs to create their agency profile. Because they are the primary agency, right? They are the ones who are going to receive the funds. Do all MiLEAP student success applications have the same allowable indirect cost, less than 10%? I think the rule that was put there was for 10%, but I know that for other grants, you can also have a federal approved rate and then state approved rate or other approved rate. So I'm not sure whether that is allowed on this particular grant program. Kamara, can you answer that?
it's best to just look at the grant application because each grant is designed differently based on the legislation
Right.
that is.
But I think the Quick Start has a 10%, whereas the other grant doesn't have indirect cost at all. You know, the allocation grant. barrier. What is that other
The,
program that
the
you
barrier
have?
removal direct to student.
Yeah, it doesn't have indirect cost. Yeah, this one. I don't think it has indirect cost. Yeah, so it just has other direct costs, but these are the only four categories that are allowed on that on this particular grant. Yeah. I think Kamara, there is a question from I think Joan, and so she's asking some clarification. So probably you can provide that.
Yeah, so the college or university itself would be the agency, not the like individual departments within that agency. So um, if it's Michigan University, the agency that applies is Michigan University, not College of Education at Michigan University, if that makes sense.
Okay. Any other questions? And
I think that's all that we have for right now.
okay. So I think on the handouts that there is an exercise of creating your agency profile and user profile. Uh, I think if you could get that done in the next couple of days, because all agencies who are having for the other program, the what do you call that? For the barrier removal, that's an allocation based program. So you won't be able to start that application until you have created your agency profile so that we can upload your allocations. And then you'll get an email saying that this is your allocation so that your budget has to be up to that. It cannot exceed that allocation.
Thank you, Joseph, and thank you everyone for
Yeah.
attending. We have recorded this training and it will be available.
And I think there is one more question from Thomas. Is each agency allowed more than one application for a given RFA? At least right now, the system is set up that only one application can be submitted by the agency. Is that correct, Kamara?
Correct.
Yeah, for the quick start. Okay. Okay, then everyone, thanks a lot. I hope this was helpful. And good luck with your application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.